I'm Mark Nelson. I'm 87 years old. I have 5 children, and I know for a fact they are waiting for me to die. Not out of malice, but because I trained them to. Let me tell you what happened. Yesterday, I overheard my son on the phone in the kitchen. I was in the den, in my recliner. He was talking to one of his siblings about the eventual distribution and waiting for the will. The tone was so cold, so clinical. It finally broke the dam. All these years I thought I was being a good father, a practical man. I was a librarian for 45 years, for God's sake. I believed in saving. I hoarded every spare dollar for their inheritance, believing that money after I was gone was the ultimate act of love. And you know what? It cost Gail and me everything. It turned my children's love into a patient, calculating vigil. I traded our shared joy for their future greed. Let me explain. It started 3 months ago, on our 62nd wedding anniversary. Gail and I were at our old kitchen table, the one we've had for 50 years. She had a brochure open, a river cruise in Europe. Her finger was tracing the photo of a castle on the Rhine. She didn't even ask. She just sighed, closed the brochure, and said, "Maybe in another life." That sigh, you see, that was the first crack. I felt a pang then, but I pushed it down. I told myself we were being sensible. That moment stayed with me. And then my own body gave me a chance to make a different choice. My hip was pure agony. The doctor was clear. A specific motorized recliner, he said, $3,000. It would change my life, reduce the pain, help me sleep. But all I could think was, that's $600 less for each of the kids. So I did the practical thing. I bought a $400 used one. It squeaks. It doesn't lift me right. I told Gail, it's the practical choice. I said it with pride. I chose their future comfort over my present pain. I thought I was being noble. But then my children came for a visit. Last month, all 5 of them were here for Sunday dinner. The conversation died down. My eldest, David, looked around our living room. He looked at my lifetime of books, at Gail's quilting corner, at my stamp collection in its glass case. He said, "You know, this house will be a nightmare to clear out." He said it like he was already burdened. He wasn't seeing a home filled with love. He was seeing an inventory. It hurt. It hurt deep. But I still didn't get it. Not fully. That comment festered. But it was just a preview. The real blow came yesterday. I was in that squeaky recliner in the den, trying to find a position that didn't hurt. The room shares an old heating vent with the kitchen. I heard David's voice, clear as a bell. He was on the phone. I held my breath. What I heard next wasn't a son worried about his father. David's words were cold and clear. Just a matter of time now. We've discussed it. The house, the stocks, the liquid assets. We split it 5 ways. But we have to wait for the will. Just be patient. There was no, I hope Dad's okay. No concern for Gail. It was a shareholder update, a logistics meeting. My life, our life together, was being reduced to a portfolio. I sat there in that terrible chair, and the truth settled into my bones like a chill. I felt betrayed, and then I felt angry at myself. For 45 years as a librarian, I believed in order, in saving, in being practical. I applied that to my family. Every trip not taken, every comfort denied, was a deposit into the bank of good father. I was so proud of the balance I was building for them. I never saw the interest it was accruing. Entitlement, impatience, calculation. And what did my prudence cost? It cost Gail the sight of those castles. It cost me peaceful nights free from pain. It cost us the joy of using our savings to make memories together in our final years. We hoarded sunlight for a future we wouldn't see, leaving ourselves in the shade. We traded our shared joy for their future greed, and I orchestrated the whole deal. I was grieving for us. But that overheard conversation was a gift, a brutal, ugly gift. It woke me up. I finally understood. The money wasn't a legacy of love. It was a cage. It turned me into a vault in their eyes. My children aren't waiting for my stories, or the history behind my stamps, or the pattern in Gail's latest quilt. They're waiting for the appraisal. And every day I delayed spending was a day I stole from Gail and myself. So I decided to stop being a vault. I got up from that chair. My hip screamed, but I didn't care. I went to find my wife. I found Gail at her quilting frame. I told her what I heard. I saw the same sad recognition in her eyes. Then I said, "We're booking that river cruise next week." I told her I'm ordering the $3,000 recliner tomorrow. The money is coming from the kids' fund. Let them be disappointed in a living father. This isn't about revenge. It's about reclamation. Here's what I've learned. Your children are waiting for you to die, not out of malice, but because we train them to. We make our money more important than our lives. The lesson is this: spend it now. On the trip, the chair, the help you need. Use your inheritance to build final joyful memories with the person you love. Your presence is the real gift, not your absence. I don't have much time left, a year, maybe 2, but it's my time. So this is my confession and my advice. I'm Mark Nelson, 87. I'm taking my wife to see castles on the Rhine. I'm going to sit in a chair that doesn't hurt. And if my children have a problem with a smaller inheritance, they can tell it to a father who is finally, truly alive. Don't make my mistake. Your kids can wait. Your happiness can't. Spend the money now. So I told her. I told Gail everything I'd heard through the vent. I watched her face, the way her hands, which had been guiding a needle through a quilt square, went still. She didn't look surprised. She looked tired, and then she looked sad. That was worse than anger. She just nodded slowly and said, "I know, Mark. I've known." That hurt more than David's words. She'd seen it all along. My practical, sociable wife, who'd listened to me talk about stamp values and interest rates for 62 years, had seen the monster I was creating and couldn't stop me. She just sighed and closed the brochures. "We're booking the cruise," I said again, my voice firmer, "and I'm calling about the chair first thing tomorrow." She put her needle down. "What will you tell them?" "The truth," I said, "that we're spending our money." We did it. The next morning my hip was a dull, constant roar, but I called the medical supply company. I ordered the exact recliner the doctor recommended, $3,127. I gave them my credit card number, the one linked to the savings account labeled "for the kids." I felt a jolt, like I was doing something illegal. Then I felt a wave of relief so strong my eyes watered. Gail sat beside me at the kitchen table, her hand on my arm. Then we called the travel agent. A Rhine River cruise, 3 weeks from now. We picked a cabin with a balcony. Gail's hands were shaking as she held the brochure. When the agent gave me the total, I didn't divide it by 5. I just said, "That's fine." We booked it. The chair arrived a week later. 2 men in uniforms brought it in, a sleek, quiet thing. They took the old squeaky monster away. I sat in it. I pressed the button. It hummed, lifting me smoothly, supporting my back and my bad hip just right. For the first time in months, the pain didn't spike. It just faded to an ache. I looked at Gail. She had tears in her eyes. "It doesn't squeak," she said, and we both laughed, a little hysterically. We were giddy. We were spending their money. Of course, it couldn't stay a secret. David came by the following Sunday, alone. He said he was checking in. He walked into the living room and stopped dead. He saw the new recliner. His eyes went to it, then to me, then back to the chair. It was like a calculator clicking behind his eyes. "New chair, Dad?" "Yep," I said, not getting up. The chair was holding me perfectly. "The one the doctor ordered. It's a miracle." "Must have been expensive." "It was," I said. I kept my voice even. "Worth every penny. We've got insurance. We've got passports. We're going." Gail came and sat on the sofa after he drove away. We were quiet for a long time. The house felt different, lighter, but also sadder. The illusion was gone. "He's going to call the others," she said finally. "I know. They're going to be upset. I know that too." I reached for her hand. "Let them be upset with a father who can sleep through the night. Let them be upset with parents who saw castles." She squeezed my hand. "I'm scared, Mark." "So am I admitted. But I'm more scared of dying in that old chair, having never gone anywhere, just waiting for them to cash the check I made of my life." That was the heart of it. I hadn't just been saving money. I'd been saving myself for the end. I'd been a librarian curating my own estate, organizing my life into boxes for someone else to sort through. My stamp collection, my shelves of books. The phone started ringing that evening. It was Susan, our second-born. Her voice was sweet, concerned. "Dad, David said you're making some big purchases and a trip. We're just worried you're being impulsive." Then Michael, the youngest, more direct. "A river cruise? That's a massive expense. What if you have a fall?" Then Jennifer, then Robert, the chorus of concern, the united front of heirs protecting their legacy. I answered them all the same way. "We've decided. We're going." I didn't argue. I didn't justify. I just stated it. It was the most powerful I'd felt in a decade. But here's the thing they don't tell you about reclaiming your life. It's lonely. The money was just the symbol. The real cost was the relationship. I had built my fatherhood on a foundation of future money, and now I was kicking that foundation out from under them. The love that was left felt thin, conditional. I wondered how much of it had always been that way, and I'd just been too blind, too proud of my practical sacrifice to see it. I wondered how much of it had always been that way, and I'd just been too blind, too proud of my practical sacrifice to see it. The week before the cruise was the quietest of our marriage. The phone stopped ringing. The kids had clearly had a conference call and decided on a strategy. Silence. It was a punishment. It was also a revelation. The flow of dutiful check-ins, the Sunday visits, the chatter about the grandkids we didn't have. It had been the interest payments on the inheritance. Now that the principal was being spent, the payments stopped. The night before we left for the airport, Gail came and sat on the ottoman by my chair. She had that look, the one she gets when she's about to say something true and difficult. "Mark," she said, "are we doing the right thing?" "The trip? Of course we are." "Not just the trip." She gestured vaguely around the room, at our life. All of it, turning them against us. "They turned themselves, Gail. We just stopped funding the charade." She was quiet for a minute. "Do you remember when David was 10? He wanted that expensive baseball glove, the one all the boys had." I remembered. It was 1974. We had 3 kids in school then. Money was tight. I told him we couldn't afford it. I told him the glove he had was fine. "You came home a week later with that glove," she said, her voice soft. "You'd picked up extra shifts at the library. You'd skipped your lunch for a week to save the lunch money. You gave it to him and you said, 'Don't tell your mother.' But he told me. He was so proud. He said, 'Dad's the best.' That's the man I married. That man would have moved heaven and earth for his kids. And now we're that man's enemies. Now, every dollar I spent on myself felt to them like a theft from that same sacred fund. I had created the system. I had taught them that my love was measured in deferred dollars. And now I was changing the rules. "That man," I said, my throat tight, That man was an idiot. He thought love was a thing you bought and put in a trust. He thought setting himself on fire to keep them warm was noble. All he did was teach them to love the fire. And now they're mad because the fuel is running out. Gail reached over and took my hand. Her skin was papery, lined from decades of quilting and gardening and holding mine. "I'm scared we'll die over there," she whispered. "Then we'll die seeing castles," I said. But my voice cracked. The flight was long. My hip ached despite the chair. Gail was anxious. But then we boarded the riverboat. It was small, elegant. Our room had a balcony. We stood on it as the boat pulled away from the dock in Cologne. The cathedral spires reached up into a gray sky. Gail's hand was in mine. She wasn't looking at the castles yet. She was looking at the water, her face pale. At first dinner, we sat at a table with 2 other couples. They were our age, maybe a little younger. They talked about their children, their grandchildren. They showed pictures. We had none to show. When they asked, we just said, "We have 5, and changed the subject. I felt like a fraud. We had built a family, a whole life, and now we were sailing away from it, literally and figuratively. The guilt was a cold stone in my stomach. Was this it? Was the price of my comfort the complete alienation of everyone I loved? The 3rd day, we sailed through the Rhine Gorge. The sun came out. The cliffs were steep and green, dotted with vineyards. And then, around a bend, there it was, a castle. When it was gone, she turned to me. Her eyes were full of tears, but she was smiling, a real smile, one I hadn't seen in years. It was better than the brochure, she said. That was the moment, that right there. That's when I knew, absolutely and completely, what I had done. It wasn't about the money. It wasn't about the kids being greedy. It was about time. It was about that look on her face. I had denied us decades of that look. For what? For a bigger number in a bank account that my children saw as theirs. I had stored away my love for her in a vault labeled later. But later is a thief. Later steals the light from your eyes, the ease from your bones. Later promises you'll do it tomorrow, and then you wake up and you're 87 and your hip hurts and your wife has forgotten how to dream out loud. I started to cry. Right there on the deck. I didn't sob. The tears just came, quiet and hot. I was crying for the trips we never took to visit her sister in California, for the new sewing machine she needed 10 years ago but said was too expensive, for the sound of her sigh when she closed that brochure. I had called it practicality. It was cowardice. I was afraid of running out of money, so I let us run out of time instead. Gail saw me crying. She didn't say, "What's wrong?" She knew. She put her arm through mine and leaned her head on my shoulder. We stood like that as another castle, then another, slid past. We were spending their inheritance, and with every castle, every quiet moment on that balcony, every pain-free hour in my chair back home. We were buying back pieces of the life I had foolishly put up for sale. The buyers were waiting, but we were taking it off the market. The buyers were waiting, but we were taking it off the market. Here's what I learned on that river, looking at my wife's face in the sunset. I learned that I was wrong. For 45 years as a librarian, I believed the most important story was the one left behind, the estate, the final tally. I was curating my own legacy like a rare book collection, thinking its value was in its preservation for the next holder. But a book no one reads is just paper. A life not lived is just a waiting room. I thought the money after I was gone was the climax of the story. It's not. It's the epilogue, and a bitter one at that. The real story is the trip you take, the chair that lets you hold your wife's hand without wincing, the silence that's comfortable, not charged with expectation. So here is my direct advice to you, if you're my age or getting there, sitting on a nest egg you call for the kids. Stop, open your account, look at the number, and then think of one thing, just one, that would make today better. A better mattress, a weekly cleaner so you're not straining your back, that visit to your old college friend you keep putting off. Now, think of your children's faces if you told them you were spending that money on it. If your stomach clenches with a vague sense of guilt, that's your proof. You've built the same cage. You are not a vault. You are a man. You are a woman. You are allowed to buy comfort. You are allowed to buy joy. Do I regret it? God, yes. I regret every sigh of Gail's I ignored. I regret every ache I endured as a point of pride. I regret that the relationship with my 5 children is probably broken for good. But I would regret it more if that conversation through the vent had been my final truth. If I had died in that squeaky chair, having never seen the castles, leaving Gail with nothing but a check and a house full of inventory. This way, we have the castles. We have the memory of the river. We have a few good years in a chair that doesn't hurt. The cost was high, but the price of the alternative was our very souls. You still have time. Maybe not a river cruise's worth. Maybe just a new chair's worth. Maybe just a dinner at a nice restaurant every week instead of eating leftovers alone. That's enough. Start there. Take the money out of the later column and put it in the now column. Today. This channel, I understand, is for stories like mine. Hard lessons learned too late, but maybe not too late for you. If what I've said rings true, if you felt that same quiet calculation from your own family, or that same guilt for wanting something for yourself, then subscribe. Hit that notification bell. There are more people like me with stories to tell, and you might hear the one that changes your mind before it's too late. Leave me a comment down below. Tell me, what's the one thing you're denying yourself right now that you could change tomorrow? Is it a trip, A hearing aid that works? Just saying it out loud is the first step. If this story made you think of someone, share it. Maybe it's the nudge they need. Hit the like button if it resonated, if only to let me know I'm not shouting into a void here. And if you have a story of your own, a lesson learned the hard way about family, money, or time, there's a form in the description. Submit it. Your experience could be the lifeline for someone else. We have to look out for each other. A book that helped me frame some of this, too late for me but maybe not for you, is Being Mortal by Atul Gawande. It's not about money. It's about what makes a life worth living right to the end. I've put a link below. I'm Mark Nelson. I'm 87. My children are waiting for me to die. But I'm not waiting anymore. I'm living. However much I have left, it's mine. Don't make my mistake. Your kids can wait. Your happiness can't. Spend the money now.